Welcome to another episode of Fractional with Chris Capone, where we showcase local leaders, entrepreneurs, and people making positive impacts in our community. In this episode, we are speaking with Scott Davis from NCInnovation. Scott is the Hub Director for UNCW. NCInnovation mission is to commercialize and scale innovation to create jobs and improve economic opportunity in all 100 counties in North Carolina. The vision is that North Carolina will be the innovation state, enabled by public-private partnerships to accelerate commercialized innovation in North Carolina's universities. Scott, well, thanks for coming in and joining me for a podcast.
It's a pleasure to be here, man. I've been looking forward to it.
Yeah, me too. And it's funny that we've seen each other at a bunch of events, and it took us a year or maybe even longer to finally get together. And turns out we know a lot of the same people and have a lot of the same interests, from entrepreneurship to being out on the water. And so it's pretty cool.
Yeah, a lot of overlap in the Venn diagram, but I think we sponsor and or are at all the same events together around town, so overdue.
Yes, absolutely. Let's start with what is NCInnovation and kind of what is the mission, the vision, the goal, and the purpose.
NCInnovation is an economic development group here in the state of North Carolina. I like to call it one of those overnight successes, 10 years in the making.
Yes.
You know, folks have been hard at work long before I joined the effort. We're a public-private partnership with the state of North Carolina, and we exist to fund innovation, commercialize research out of our UNC system schools, ultimately take them from lab to market, and uplift all counties and all folks in North Carolina.
And so you as a hub director for UNCW focus specifically in the Southeast or within Wilmington? Anything? What kind of territory are you overseeing?
Yeah, so I think to lay the groundwork a little bit is that folks on our team designed a regional innovation network model. So we have 4 regions throughout the state. Obviously, we operate in the eastern region, and Wilmington is one of our hubs in the east. And so my direct purview is working with our awesome friends at UNCW here in town. And I do work along the coast a little bit with some of the other marine institutes. But in short, UNCW is home base.
And you're a UNCW alumni as well?
Definitely. I moved down here and got my undergraduate degree in economics with a Spanish minor. And kind of full circle moment after my first business, came back for the IMBA program. Okay. So we studied at UNCW to get an MBA, then went over to Valencia, Spain for a master's in marketing, and then had so much fun hanging with the UNCW crew that I decided to stay around and work in their tech transfer office, the Office of Innovation and Commercialization. But yeah, so undergrad, grad school, used to work with them. So.
And when you were at UNCW, you started and founded a business, if I remember correctly. So you've kind of lived like the life cycle of being on the other side of the people that you work with or serve. Tell us a little bit about the business that you started.
Yeah, it's very coincidental and timely to be back with NCInnovation, considering the narrative of what led me here. I was knowing I was going to go into business, but wasn't sure exactly what that meant. And as I studied economics more and more, I had the great fortune of learning from Dr. Peter Schumann at UNCW and the economics.
I also had Dr. Schumann.
Right, so you're studying environmental economics, natural resource economics, and so I have environmental heartstrings. I like serving the world on the civilian side of things, and just trying to leave things and folks better than I found them. And so I got myself attached to a variety of nonprofits in the area, one being Plastic Ocean Project.
Yep.
And we were doing such meaningful and impactful work. And I'd be out in the field or on a trip with friends, and I would just see so much plastic waste in the environment. And I remember coming back and talking to mentors such as Dr. Schumann or Dr. Jennifer Biddle and others. And they're saying to me, Scott, there are business-driven, economically viable solutions to some of these problems that you and we all see in our day-to-day lives. And so I thought on that for a while, started doing my own research, and uncovered a technology, pyrolysis, the conversion of plastic waste into usable fuels. And conveniently at the time, there was an MIT spin-out company. They were called PK Clean, rebranded as Renewlogy. But this incredible founder, Priyanka Bakaya, had raised venture funding and was building this plastics to fuel business.
Mm-hmm.
So I reached out to them and I said, hey, I'm an undergrad student at UNCW. We're cleaning up the environment, but we also want to be part of the change for how this problem is addressed nationally and globally.
Mm-hmm.
And long story short there is that partnered the chemistry department at UNCW to verify and validate what the claims of these industry companies were making, proved everything out, and then secured funding from UNCW and other folks in town to bring a demonstrational size kind of pilot scale unit of that technology to Wilmington.
How cool.
And then I realized, wow, there's change and impact happening in front of my eyes. Maybe we should start a business to effectively commercialize or scale some of these technologies, right? How can we help?
Mm-hmm.
And so that was the first technology that was kind of the genesis of my friend Lee Molden and I starting our company, Natural Bridges, towards the end of my undergraduate studies. And then we worked with one other core technology, which was from a founder here in the Wilmington area, which was a mobile solar generator.
Mm-hmm.
And we worked with them to refine not just the business day-to-day operations, but any wraparound services just to get a technology ready for market. And we ended up having the inventor include reverse osmosis and water purification, telecommunications servers to communicate with the world. So anybody who would have adopted this system had clean power, clean water, and ability to communicate in times of emergency and natural disaster response. And we had a great run with it. We were essentially value-added resellers for those technologies. And
Mm-hmm.
that had me walk in the halls of UNCW, not just as a student, but helping build out these technologies.
How
And
cool.
we had a really good time doing it.
And so you also, if I remember, and you alluded to, you went and studied abroad in Spain, in Valencia, and were you doing something with the business while you were over there?
Yes, we were. We had secured some funding from some new programs at UNCW, such as UNCW Sustainability and
Mm-hmm.
other groups, to just continue pushing these technologies forward and hopefully benefiting Wilmington and North Carolina in the meantime. My friend and I had learned a very critical entrepreneurial lesson early on, which was that somebody's got to be boss, and we both wanted to be. So, lesson learned there on starting a business with a friend.
Are you guys still friends?
We are still friends. To this day, he's one of my best buddies. But so as we were realizing maybe what we didn't know or where we
Yep.
should be growing our skill sets, we were like, hey, let's leverage this world-class and affordable program that UNCW has to get 2 master's degrees.
Yep.
And see how we can get not just these technologies out there, but kind of get our brand and business out. And so we pitched on kind of the university circuit, I call it, of any of those pitch competitions that are earmarked for university, undergrad, or graduate students,
Mm-hmm.
and then really leaned in on the social entrepreneurship lens.
Yep.
And ended up winning at UNCW and then going up to Boston for the Holt Prize,
How cool.
and saw some world-changing technologies and ideas. We didn't end up winning it, but we made our way back from Spain over to Boston to see some really incredible folks present some technologies that are making the world a better place today.
That's really neat. So after your MBA program, did you go directly into working with the tech transfer part with UNCW?
Yeah, that's exactly right. I had conveniently scored a graduate assistant position with the Office of Innovation and Commercialization with friends like Chris Crum and Craig Galbraith and Steve Fontana and so many folks that are still in the UNCW orbit today.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, it was timely for me where a position opened up upon finishing the IMBA program to step in as the manager of that office and wrap our arms around the IP portfolio at UNCW, out license and sell these technologies, distribute them to the world broadly. At the time, it was a lot of data sets and other pharmaceutical technologies, working with the Center for Marine Science a lot. But yeah, it was a pretty natural pathway to kind of close down the doors of our business in some ways, but to transition into working for a university, learn tech transfer, and so much about working in an academic, higher education institution.
What does tech transfer mean, or how can you explain that?
I mean, I would just simply say, how do you best support technologies, protect them, patent them, whatever you need for IP? And
Got
then
it.
once that foundation is laid, translational research or tech transfer, taking them to the world for all of us to benefit from.
Okay.
So that can be through sales, it can be through direct sales from the university, it can be through out licensing, or it can even be for supporting researchers in their own spin out companies and ventures from the university.
Okay. So is that somewhat synonymous with commercialization, or what's the difference, or the relationship of tech transfer and then in commercialization?
I would say they're synonymous. I mean,
Yeah.
commercialization is the broad task of taking something from wherever it sits pre-market readiness to the market and private industry.
Got it. Got it. So how long were you in that role for?
That was just for about 2 years,
Okay.
and enjoyed every moment of it. I learned so much working with folks who I now work with today through NCInnovation,
Yep.
and ultimately had the chance to step into an industry that I knew I had my own skill set gap in and wanted to learn so much about, which was the world of venture capital. And so it was a stepping stone from UNCW to go work for some venture funds up in the DC metro area.
Okay. So yeah, that's right. I forgot. So somehow in my head, I had you going from UNCW straight to NCInnovation, but there was a couple other roles in between there.
There were, yeah.
Tell us about that.
Yeah, it's a testament to how crazy and serendipitous life is.
Yeah.
Is I ended up here in Wilmington meeting somebody named Randy Beardsworth, who has made my life better from the first day I met him. He served a 30+ year career in the Coast Guard, was a Coast Guard Academy grad originally. Very high up in the Coast Guard, attached to the White House early on. I wouldn't say founder, but somebody who helped create the Department of Homeland Security.
Wow.
What does somebody like that do after these multiple careers? It's apparently retire in Wilmington
Retire
and
Wilmington.
start a venture fund with some other military academy grads. And so, yeah, these folks really were some of the earliest investors in Black Rifle Coffee and some other veteran-owned brands.
How cool.
And then they said, hey, this thesis of veterans outperforming their peers as entrepreneurs is a great one, and one that they're going to put their own capital behind and then raise funding from other LPs to ultimately start what was kind of an angel syndicate to begin with,
Okay.
maturing into funds 1, 2, and onward from there. But so I had the opportunity to, however you enter the venture world. For me, it was an associate position, and that was doing due diligence on all these veteran-led startups, helping them deploy the funding, negotiate the terms and contracts. I mean, really any hat you can wear. It was a small venture shop at the time.
Wow, what an
So I had the real
experience.
privilege of working with mentors, now friends, that brought me into that world.
And then, so that was here in Wilmington, or that was up in DC, or a mixture, combination?
I was unwilling to leave Wilmington.
Yeah.
So that's a theme throughout my career. And so I made some pretty crazy commutes, early mornings leaving here to be in time for 9 a.m. meetings. But the short answer is that it was all hybrid work throughout that chapter of my life.
Got it. And then, so how'd you transition into your role with NCInnovation?
Yeah. So one quick bit of background is that I was working for a venture fund up there, as I said, and we commonly co-invested or had our deal flow come from certain sources. And one of them was this nationally regarded accelerator program for vet-led startups.
Okay.
And so I got pulled over to join our friends at PenFed, which is Pentagon Federal Credit Union, and help them deploy this remaining funding that they had for, just like I was doing before, investing in these startups. But they also had this accelerator program. And so I was able to take over this program that people had put so much effort and thoughtfulness into building. And for about 18 months was running 2 cohorts a year where we would bring in the top ed-led startups in the country and ultimately polish, prepare, and then tee them up for raising capital across the U.S. And I was tired. My back was hurting me a little bit from all the driving, times in planes. And I needed a little bit of a gear change. So I came back down here and was thinking, what is next? And it was right about then when our friend Jim Roberts said to me, "Hey, Scott, you in the loop on this NCInnovation thing."
Love it.
They just got $500 million from the state of North Carolina to be investing non-dilutive capital into research and creating spin outs and commercializing it. I think you'd be a pretty good fit for that. So I started doing my research on who NCInnovation is. And yeah, long story short, there is the Wilmington Hub Director position opened up, and I threw my hat in the pool. And once again, just kind of one of those full circle moments in life where I had so many, not just old friends and colleagues, but such familiarity with UNCW as an institution.
Right.
Had been a part of their tech transfer operations, spun out my own business out of it, and the opportunity to come work for not just the world-class firm that NCInnovation is, but to support UNCW and the Wilmington ecosystem broadly. Sign me up.
Yep. So NCInnovation started with a $500 million grant from the state. Was it a grant or an investment? How do we characterize that?
I would characterize it very much as an investment.
Okay.
I already, made the joke. It was a decade plus in the making, I'm sure.
Right,
but
right.
I believe it was in 2020, NCInnovation formed as a nonprofit, and then in 2023, the $500 million, the GA, approved that and created this public-private partnership that is NCInnovation. We effectively have an evergreen fund with this endowment structure.
Right.
So it's investing that $500 million strategically, deploying the interest on that via our funding and other resources that we need to support this work. And so it's true economic development. We want to uplift all. It's not just it's not just spin out companies and job creation, which is a very important metric for the state, but it's also social, environmental, human health impacts that by taking these technologies out of the lab and bringing them to market, so often patents, for example, researchers have these world-changing ideas that'll just collect dust on the shelf. And that's not serving any of us, especially North Carolina, to the fullest ability. And those technologies collecting dust, they still have market relevance. They just need funding, resources, support, operators, whatever it may be, to go to the next level. And then sometimes it's more of a fruit on the vine sort of approach where there's a technology where the market timeliness is really critical. And if the state of North Carolina isn't timely in their own accord for picking that, it'll die on the vine. And so I see it as kind of 2 different buckets where there's existing IP that just needs a little bit of nurturing, or there's some that if the state misses the boat, well, none of us are better off, right? And so this $500 million serves to commercialize all of this work across the UNC system. I mean, 16 institutions across the state.
Yep.
There are some world-changing researchers and technologies that deserve this funding, and I'm really proud that North Carolina is trying to position themselves as the innovation state. It's one of those things that I know we'll look back on however long from now, and it'll be one of the best things North Carolina's ever done.
Yeah. And so when you say evergreen and endowment, it means that this $500 million that has been received, that's being invested, and we're not dipping into the principal or like the corpus. We're using the earnings, the interest, and whatever comes off of that endowment or fund to then be deployed for investment and like, funding operations of NCInnovation. Is that fair?
Yeah, that's exactly right. I mean, some endowments are structured to spend down. This might be getting a little bit out of my league on how some endowments or funds structure themselves, but yeah, we deploy it, and we don't deploy the full amount of interest. So if anything, we're growing that 500 million over time.
Right. Good.
And depending on how investments yield each year, dictates how much funding we can distribute throughout North Carolina. We've deployed a little bit over $37 million in investment since we started in 2024.
Wow.
So it's not a light amount of money, and we're putting it to work in such a strategic way that it's already yielding fruit for the state.
Awesome. And when you say non-dilutive funding, is that your it's structured like a loan or debt, or how tell me a little bit about how that works.
So grants would be the most simple way to word it, is that, coming from the world of venture in my case, or coming from the world that you operate in where folks are always taking out loans and securing debt and lending, this is very different. This is all truly non-dilutive. We don't take an equity stake. It's not venture. But we do use the word investing simply because we're helping uplift the state and create hopefully these spin out companies, right?
Got it.
But yeah, so we deploy our funding to the university, to the faculty researchers to take this technology from whatever phase it's in to wherever it needs to go for market readiness.
Got it.
But yeah, non-dilutive grants.
And is there any upside on making these grants? I know it's, you don't have any equity, but is there any type of upside? Hey, we're putting this money in, if it gets commercialized or sold or anything like that, is there any upside, or it's literally, hey, here's $2 million, here's how, we expect you guys to use it, congratulations and good luck, go get them?
Yeah, I mean, I can answer that in a few ways. I mean, directly, we don't have any upside as NCInnovation in that sense because we don't take an equity position. I mean, it's a project at that point. It's not even a company to take equity in. But to answer it a little different way is the universities, I truly believe, will be better off from this. The way tech transfer offices tend to work, not every institution has a tech transfer office. They all have their own means of distributing their technologies. But in the end, when a spin-out company is formed, the university will have some sort of royalty or trickle back based on commercializing that research to fund additional work in the labs, to bring the best talent to the state. And then similarly, there's a split with the actual research faculty as well for kind of their ownership of the technology or IP. And so the universities and the individuals that help create them will be better off at the end of it. And I'd argue the case of hopefully reinvesting in their communities to keep that flywheel going.
Yeah, definitely. So as a hub director, what's your day like? What's your kind of role and responsibility within this whole organization?
Yeah, I mean, our leadership team developed such a thoughtful approach with these 4 regions throughout the state. Every university needs its own kind of flavor of support or means of working with them. Once again, there's some institutions that are R1 institutions, incredibly mature, have been doing this for decades, versus there's maybe some other smaller institutions in the state that are pretty green with this. And so they require their own bit of attention and focus. And so for the Wilmington hub, UNCW being an R2, we're kind of in that middle ground where there have fortunately been some researchers in the past decades that have kind of pushed the envelope, forced the university to think in this way, maybe to create the policies and procedures to do translational research. And UNCW falls in that bucket. So I'm in such a great place to have friends like Justin Strawley, who run the OIC today, work with Dr. Stuart Barrett, who oversees research and innovation, and work with those sorts of folks in the incredible research faculty at UNCW to uncover what's more immediately ready or right for commercializing. How do we support them with our various kind of forms of funding? Versus maybe there's some researchers who have interest in entrepreneurship but haven't developed that skill set. So how do we invest in them from a programming sense to build that skill set within them? And then we've even developed some newer funding sources and programs where there's an idea, but it's kind of pre-proof of concept. So how do we get them small and medium-sized pots of funding to progress to proof of concept, validate, to increase their competitiveness, not just for our core grant, but other funding sources, other government contracts, whatever it may be. Long-winded way to say my job and day-to-day kind of flexes on what it'll look like, but broadly it's working with some of the most incredible folks I've ever known in my entire life to channel their passion, energy, and ultimately intellectual property that they've developed within a university such as UNCW, and creating a strategic game plan to support them, and then surrounding them with incredible entrepreneurs and countless other stakeholders that'll be required for their success.
How cool. You mentioned R1, R2, UNCW being an R2. What does that mean?
Yeah, it's a classification for the number of the dollar amount of research expenditures for a university. So certain universities in the East, such as ECU, or obviously a lot of people talk about Chapel Hill and NC State, those are R1s, right? And then there's R2, R3, and down from there. I can't regurgitate whatever the exact dollar amounts are. But there's a lot of institutions such as UNCW where we're right in kind of that middle ground, and I don't need to describe to you the trajectory of this town or this university. And so kind of laying that framework and staging things to really amplify what they're doing. And I'm sure UNCW will be on their pathway to that R1 status sooner than later.
Yeah, I would not doubt that. Well, give us an example of some of the projects you've been involved with that are coming out of UNCW. If you can, I don't know if there's confidentiality on some of the things.
I mean,
but
there certainly is. We're talking about some of the most delicate, intellectual property that there is out there. But I can certainly give you some examples. During our pilot round, so we started deploying in 2024. This was before I joined NCInnovation, but we funded Dr. Ying Wang for the development of a universal flu vaccine.
I remember that.
So a broadly
I remember
protective
that technology,
multi-strain universal flu vaccine for not just human health, but applications for bird flu, swine flu. So it's not just human health, but potentially agricultural. And that's hardcore pharmaceutical chemistry out of UNCW.
I would have never expected something like that to come from UNCW. I would have expected like RTP kind of area, universities around there.
I would say that's why we exist as NCInnovation. There's stuff hiding in plain sight, and it just needs some uncovering or some additional support and funding to make an impact. Next, we funded our friends Dr. Lindsay Schroeder and Alex McDaniel with the Next Strength assessment tool. That is a medical device for measuring biometric data from the neck and head. This is for civilian applications and for military and DoD applications, so a true dual-use technology. America's warfighters need to be beyond the classic impact test that maybe you and I would have taken during athletics in high school. Need a little bit more robust medical device verification for getting the green light to go or no go for a mission, or for a civilian athlete to get cleared to go back on the field. That's the Next Strength assessment tool. And then we funded Dr. Ellie Ibrahimi with the CyberPark project, which is a cybersecurity curriculum and software for K through 12 education.
Wow.
This blew my mind. The younger generations grow up on tablets using technology all day, every day. North Carolina and most of the U.S. don't have cybersecurity education for our youth, so they're exposed cyber citizens. And Ellie, through her background, has developed this curriculum and methodology that will be hopefully adopted. I mean, the state of North Carolina has mandated that in the years to come, we roll out this sort of technology across the state, or this sort of curriculum. And so Dr. Ibrahimi is hard at work to ensure that not only she captures the North Carolina market opportunity, but national opportunity as well, to make all of America's youth better off and better prepared for this crazy world of technology ahead of them. And then the most recent investment is into NeuroWeave AI. It's with Dr. Carl Rissenek and Alex McDaniel. They have partnered with a company here in town, Nareem, run by our friend Rob Cooley.
Yes.
And so you think, Nareem has gone out, patented fabric as a sensor.
Right.
They have to build so much of the technology in order for it to be ready for market. So there's this opportunity for net new intellectual property that does not exist today. They partner with UNCW. UNCW in the past 2 years had created the Brain Health Resiliency Hub. And so he was one of those core industry partners attached to that hub. And through working together and collaborating, Dr. Rissenek and McDaniel say, we can build that.
Wow.
And so now they're developing basically the data acquisition, hardware, software, the algorithms, the dashboards to display, make maybe clinical recommendations for how do you take a patent for fabric as a sensor and really bring it to life by translating biometric data from sensors integrated into textiles all the way to benefit us by being able to lay our head on a pillow.
Unbelievable.
And so that's the most recent investment at UNCW.
And it sounds, so 3 of the 4 sound, very much like biotech, pharmaceutical, but then one was, cybersecurity. So are you guys focused on a specific, is it all biotech or technology based? Or, are there things that you maybe wouldn't invest in? I guess a lot of it has to do with intellectual property, which a lot of that has to do with, some type of technology. But I guess, is there like a scope or like a pillar or something that NCInnovation really tries to focus on?
We have some focus areas, but the short answer is we're industry and technology agnostic.
Okay.
We want to bring the most innovative technologies out of the university setting and benefit North Carolina, the U.S., or global ecosystem.
Very cool.
There are certainly some known strengths throughout the state. There are some known weaknesses throughout the state. And as long as there is that intellectual property, we can support them. The question of, are there industries that we don't invest in? I haven't come across any. It's an ever-changing landscape of what is the intellectual, it used to be what is the IP behind software.
Right.
Now it's what's the IP behind AI.
Yes.
So
yes,
we're hard at work to figure out how we may be able to invest into technologies in that space. But as long as the university has some means of securing the intellectual property, whether it's patent or even inform a trade secret, then we have a way forward to work with them and support them.
So for example, let's say, something that's close to me, I guess, an accounting student, is working on developing some type of agentic AI to optimize bookkeeping or something like that. If it was something that was novel and not out there, and that student and faculty member needed support, that would be something that would be a potential. It's not just biotech or software or anything like that.
That's right. Once again, as long as there's justifiable proven IP there, then they are eligible for our funding. I will say in my venture career and still today, I see quite a few AI technologies or apps that are in a space that you described, and I'm not sure always if there is IP there. And then the other question that I ask myself is, in terms of market readiness and timing, is our flavor of funding the best for that sort of technology? The pace of innovation today is faster than ever. And is an AI accounting tool, by the time we fund them for a 2-year grant,
exactly,
is the market opportunity still there? We have to do a lot of due diligence on those sorts of investments.
That's actually, I'm glad you said that, because that's really helpful in understanding, again, kind of the scope and the diligence or the lens that you guys are looking at these investments in.
Well, I didn't say this before, but I just mentioned it, was we fund these grants for 2 years. and the expectation is that hopefully there's a spin out company that's creating jobs in the state, but ultimately it can be any sort of technology that we're supporting.
So a 2-year grant, and I'm getting kind of into the details and the weeds, and you might not be fully, but is that something that's, hey, here's, 100%, how do you deploy the funds? Is it different for each grant, or is it, it's X dollars and it's 20% every or I don't know, divided 100% divided by 8?
Yeah,
12% every quarter.
It's broken into 2-year buckets.
Okay.
So here are the both research and commercialization milestones for year 1.
Got it.
At the end of year 1,
if you hit these milestones,
we unlock year 2 tranche of funding.
Yep.
And then there's, at the end of year 2, obviously close out and all the reporting that is completely necessary for sending to the General Assembly and other stakeholders. But with this 2 years of funding,
got it.
they have a lot to do. And just like any of us, they need to fill in the gaps in their Venn diagram of what their skill sets and focus areas are. So besides giving them the funding, we surround them with a ton of other resources and support. We're closely partnered with organizations such as NCIDEA and Riot, and any of our funded projects go through an accelerator program where they're getting more horsepower beyond whatever they may have locally available. A program that I really love of ours is that we have a project entrepreneur in residence program.
Okay.
So think industry experts, deep domain expertise from whatever sector that technology is that we're investing in.
Yes.
We help them uncover who these experts are and ultimately have to compensate these folks for attaching them to the project. But so instead of the whole effort is for this not to be built in an academic silo, but built for a commercial purpose. Right. And how better to do that than to attach an industry expert to this project? I view it as like their first hire. Like how great of a first hire can they make with that budget that we allocate them for the project EIR?
Yep.
And it's a model that I know we'll continue to run with for years to come. Sometimes these folks may end up being the operator of this eventual spin out company, or at least help build the team. Because another piece that we didn't talk about is these faculty researchers, one of their true loves oftentimes is their work as a professor, working with students. They're on their tenure track. They have all these commitments that they've already, built their life around. And so the concept of them leaving that to full steam ahead run a company is certainly an option on the table, and some of them may do that. Yeah. But oftentimes they'll end up being like a chief science officer, and these project EIRs will step up and help be a part of whatever that team is that's required to succeed. We talk about, if you look on our website, getting folks through the research valley of death, taking them from lab to market, and we certainly do that. A lot of us know the road ahead as well on the entrepreneurial side. There's another valley of death that's pretty scary too, waiting ahead for folks. Yeah. And so by attaching these industry experts early, I would argue it means whether it's the likelihood of securing initial paying customers, securing investors, whatever is required, they're going to be in a better off position than most initial startups.
Yeah, makes sense. Just imagining, I'm sure, certain individuals have the capacity or the propensity to go from being a technology person to being the CEO of a company, where others might not. And so like you said, they'll hang on as chief science officer or some other capacity and hire the business person to go do the business stuff while someone's focusing on the technology and the actual product.
That's right. And I know how much pro bono advisory work I do in my day-to-day life for startups. And so I also think it's a really cool opportunity for the state of North Carolina. Our project EIRs don't need to be in state. Many of them are. Okay. But so this idea that, once again, the trickle-down effect to these ecosystems that we operate in day to day, few hours a year week, handful hours a week to make a decent check for the year, and also have an opportunity to bring world-changing technologies to market. we've been getting some very high caliber project EIRs from within the state of North Carolina.
Very cool. So who approves, what's the approval process for the grant? Because you mentioned something about reporting and data to the General Assembly. Who ultimately has the approval to say, yes, we're going to fund this project? Is that NCInnovation alone, or are there other stakeholders that are involved in making that decision?
Definitely not NCInnovation alone.
Okay.
So at like the hub director role, I work closely with our institutional partners, in this case, UNCW, to in the pre-application stage, down select and prioritize these projects for who will ultimately get an invite to submit a full application for our funding.
Got it.
At that point, once folks are invited for a full application, I support them to the best of my ability to polish and prepare them, make sure that they're competitive for our funding. And once that application's submitted, it's out of my hands.
Yep.
We have external review panels and trusted partners that provide these reviews, just like some other grants you're probably familiar with throughout the state or national funding programs. I mean, our entire model is what I would say is taking the best practices of not apples to apples, but as similar of programs that we could find throughout the U.S. and internationally, and adopting those practices internally. So it goes to external review. Okay. It's all scored. We look at what we can deploy in any given funding round, and then ultimately a recommendation is made to our incredible board of directors. Okay. And once they sign off on things, we're able to announce how much was funded and who was funded through our funding round. And we do 2 funding rounds a year typically.
Okay. I was going to ask, is it just an open rolling kind of thing, or are there time periods? But
yeah, it's 2 funding rounds a year. Mm-hmm. We had an initial pilot round, and so we're 2.5 years into this work, and we've done 4 funding rounds. So, but for our institutional partners, it's really critical to find that rhythm, and so now we're staying on a pretty consistent cadence of funding twice a year.
Got it. Yeah, I keep thinking, I mean, it's really, like you said, it's only been a couple years old. It's not something that's been around for a long time. So I'm sure you guys are, building and, building some of these processes and systems and, best practices as you go a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the nature of building any organization that's going to make a big impact. Coming from my background in venture, it's the idea of some fund being super polished from the beginning and showing immediate returns to their investors is a tough concept.
Right.
And so the fact that we're however many years we are into this and starting to see results and see our mission coming to life, I think we're on the right track.
Do you know, or are you able to share, like, all right, so we're in 2026 right now. You guys have deployed 38 million?
Yeah, it's about 37 million to 47 projects.
Okay. Is there a goal, let's say, over the next couple of years, like, hey, our goal next year is to deploy this much, and 5 years from now it's to deploy this much, or is it really based on, hey, what's out there and what's available to fund?
Not necessarily my day-to-day job, but the way I would answer that is we have a really important factor, which is effectively how much income or interest have our investments yielded us. So that helps shape how much we can invest.
Yep.
But it's not some use it or lose it approach, right? If there aren't enough projects that have the merit to receive that amount of funding, then we can shelve it for the next round. But we haven't seen that yet. There is surplus demand for our funding, and I don't just mean that a lot of people want it, which is also true, but the caliber of the technologies coming out of North Carolina is world class. And so we haven't had that decision to make of, do these have the merit? It's so many of these have merit, but here's how many we can fund, and here's how they scored and were ranked.
Yeah. What's the most challenging part of the work that you do?
I don't have any issue, working with founders, or in this case, researchers who are going to become founders, telling them in one way or another that it might not be the best idea, or they might want to think about it in a different way. So I don't mind having those hard conversations, but the hardest part is that we can't fund everybody. And so when people really commit to this work, invest in themselves to build this entrepreneurial skill set and didn't necessarily do anything wrong, but based on the competition for that round or even the rounds ahead, they might not get funded. That's a tough part, but I'll speak for myself and for NCInnovation on this one, which is we try to leave people better off than we found them. So even if our funding isn't on the table for them, definitely try to steer them in a direction to where they can progress.
And like you said, the pro bono consulting, but I mean the coaching and the ecosystem that I'm sure these folks are getting put in front of just as part of the process of even getting to the point of being able to apply for a grant. I mean, that's super valuable, and I'm sure they're learning a ton just through that.
They are. I mean, it's stretching muscles, it's growing muscles, right? And they're working out in ways that they haven't before, because they're so often not just the master, but the PhD of what they do. Their sector is what they're specialized in. And then you start throwing in name an acronym from the business world, and they'll be like, not so sure about that.
Yeah.
Which is okay, right? They can invest in themselves, we can invest in them, and nurture that skill set all along.
Awesome. Well, I think I've asked most of all the questions that I had in my mind. Is there anything that we missed or things that you think would be important to share that we didn't talk about?
I'm sure we missed a few things. On the NCInnovation front, what I want folks to know and remember from this is that this is the largest undertaking ever in the U.S. for this type of work and this type of investing. And North Carolina has been smart enough and strategic enough to do it.
How cool.
So we need to support it. And that's just not me saying that for my own job security and wanting NCInnovation to be around. It's really something that I know we'll look back on a decade, two from now, and we will be the innovation state. We will be the business state for the U.S. And it's a real privilege to have elected officials and so many other folks that work so hard day to day to improve the lives of North Carolinians that they created an organization like this. And then I would just say thank you to you for doing all you do for the Wilmington community.
Thanks.
There's a growing ecosystem here, but as we joked about in the beginning, I think we're at so many of the same events, and working with so many of the same folks, and it's critical for Wilmington. We're on a trajectory here specifically that I think is going to be a fun one to watch for the years to come, and it's because of people like you and because of Capone & Associates. So thank you.
Well, thanks, man. I appreciate you taking the time to come and chat and for the work that you're doing, and look forward to being able to collaborate and do some cool stuff together. So
all stronger together, man.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you.
For sure.